You're listening to the Third Down Squad podcast, the best international news podcast for the National Football League. We're your hosts, Derek, Josh, and Toby. Let's get you ready for new set downs on Sunday.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Third Down Squad podcast. It is officially, for all three of us, it is going to be the Third Down Squad Fantasy Draft Week. We have our fantasy draft coming up this upcoming Saturday, the 31st. We're all super excited for that. So we have some good content here for you guys. We're going to talk about a very important topic coming up. But first, some news around the NFL. First couple things we wanted to mention. The Patriots' Pat Chung is found not guilty on cocaine-related charges. Now, what that does for him and his suspension or his status with the team going forward, we don't know yet, but we'll see what happens there. And earlier this last week, we saw Carly Lloyd, obviously USA soccer team women's player, hit a 55-yard field goal at a Chicago Bears practice earlier. Now, we obviously don't know what else this could really mean. I mean, obviously we amped this up because, you know, she's obviously a big figure in sports. But, you know, she was talking about how girls could see their way into the NFL by kicking field goals here soon. And that could be a possibility. I know that my high school has a female kicker on our football team. She does really well. She does better than everybody else for obvious reasons. So that could be something to look for later on. I think Carly Lloyd, if you want to come to the Colts after Adam Vinatieri's done kicking, which may be another year or two from now, I don't know, however long that man decides to live.
You kidding me? He's going to drop dead on the 50-yard line in the year 2050.
He's still out there kicking 60-yard field goals, and that man's 46 years old. I mean, that's amazing. But anyway, on to the first topic of today, and most of the sport world has reacted to this already, but we're going to give our official look at it, and that is Andrew Luck officially retires from the NFL. We don't care about Lamar Miller, okay? Nobody cares about Lamar Miller. Okay,
I do. I have it on my family fantasy team, and he tore his freaking ACL. I'm already down.
You know what?
I'm
That's
down
okay. That's
keepers.
fine because for the Colts that makes it easier. Okay, chill.
I had Andrew Luck, and then I lost Lamar Miller in the same day. The same day. Are you kidding me? In a keeper league, I lost two keepers.
Oh man!
I hope they get better though, and. You know, with luck, you know, I'll get into that, but I hope Lamar gets better.
Well, obviously, we all know the news. Andrew Luck has officially stated he will be retiring from the NFL. He made the announcement Saturday night after the Colts preseason game against the Bears. And whether or not Adam Schefter has any reason to do with why he had to do it earlier than he wanted to, I'll get into that here in a little bit when I do my take. But anyway, that took the entire Colts community and the football community by storm. This was a completely unexpected move given where Andrew Luck was progressing. But basically, Toby, we're going to start with we're going to start with Josh on this one. I want to get a Colts opinion and then a Saints opinion and then a Colts opinion again. Josh, two questions for you on this. First question is, what was your initial reaction to this? And then the second question is, now that we've had time to process this, how do you expect the Colts to do this season, given Andrew Luck's not coming back?
Well, when I first heard it, you know, I was in disbelief, like it was an awful April Fool's joke in the middle of late August. So I did not believe it. I did not want to believe it at all. But the more it started to move, I'm like, oh my God, this is actually happening. So a couple minutes goes by, and then all of a sudden, Twitter's flowing like crazy with this, Reddit's flowing like that, and it turns out it's official. And, you know, man, it's still hard for me to get over, you know. He was my favorite quarterback because he's just such a nice guy, you know. But after he like said that he felt like he was in kind of like a cycle of injury rehab, and that really took a toll on his body. I kind of get why he walked away from it. It's like I wouldn't want to keep living my life in that kind of pain. I want to enjoy life. I don't want to like sit, almost be pretty much wheelchair bound from all the injuries. So I know it's like a relatively quick, I guess, kind of career. Only 7 seasons, but like majority of them he was hurt for. And as much as I want to be angry at him, I just can't. He's such a lovable guy. He's got his own book club and a flip phone, for goodness sake. He's a nerd. But when you looked at that retirement conference, that impromptu one, thank you, Adam Schefter. You really, really didn't need to do that right there. But, whatever, you first one to get the story out wins, and I guess he wanted to win. So he was going to pretty much put Andrew Luck on the chopping block right then and there. But you could just tell he was done mentally, for as much as he wanted to do this, he wanted to keep playing. When you watch that, his face in explaining, he was totally devoid of all emotion, like he liked to have fun playing football, but he just looked like a shell of his former self. And when you see that, it's kind of like the other side of football that nobody really thinks about is you think that they're all like superheroes, that they can just keep taking a beating and then, sit out like 4 weeks and come back. But over time, those injuries pile up. And when they pile up, they do exactly what they did to Andrew Luck. He just puts him in a cycle. He doesn't want to, risk getting injury. And all those injuries take a toll on him mentally. And that's, like I said, the side that nobody thinks about is the mental aspect. That old saying of like football's 10% physical, 90% mental. Well, you get rid of that 90%. What's left of a football player? Just a body on the field. And just to hear his voice, who is usually so happy to talk to you about. I will give him credit, though, when he walked up there and he just did like a nice casual, hello there, kind of thing. That's classic Andrew Luck, but you could just see the pain in his face that, this is pretty much what happened to Calvin Johnson, too. Why Calvin Johnson left pretty much in his prime. Because the injuries just kept piling up. And I told Derek this so many times. I said, Ryan Grigson is the reason why Andrew Luck retired at 29. Did you know that when he was drafted in 2012, the next 2 picks for the Colts wasn't to protect their new franchise quarterback, but to get Kobe freaking Fleener and Dwayne Allen? Now, I don't know if you know those guys' names or the positions they played, but they were 2 tight ends. 2 tight ends we did not need at that moment. And his selecting of offensive linemen, which they needed. You could put a pack of Swiss cheese out there and they protect Andrew Luck better than that offensive line during the Grigson era. Jack Mewhort, he was all right. He had his injuries, but the other 2 that he drafted, I think it was Holmes and I think, what was it, Brown or Breather or something like that? The other one, he only drafted 3.
Grigson was one that drafted Ryan Kelly, but unfortunately, for like you said, Mewhort and Kelly, for most of their careers so far, they've had some injuries that have kept them off the field a lot of the time. So.
Yeah, and I'll get to your moment with the Colts really quick, but since this is like the biggest thing going on, I just feel like I need to just keep talking about it because
it's fine and make it longer. We've got it.
It's just content, right? But
right.
Just honestly, if you're gonna choose Ryan Grigson to be your GM, don't. He had no idea how to draft. He thought offense was like the way to go. And if you remember, our defense was the oldest defense in the NFL from 2012 all the way up until Chris Ballard took over. Remember that? Our youngest player is like 28 or something like that.
Mhm.
Something ridiculous. And everything was going to ship shape, but like I said earlier, those injuries, they just took their toll. And it's kind of amazing how he can just keep on putting a smiling face, but suffer in silence essentially like that. I mean, remember when he lacerated his kidney, he was peeing blood. I think that would have been a giant wake up call to somebody like me. Like, well, why the heck am I still putting my body on the line when I saw my whole life ahead of me? And I don't fault him at. The only thing I fault Andrew Luck at here is his timing. 2 weeks before the NFL season. I get that you want to retire, but if this has been on your mind and the Colts organization, they should have just said, look, we'll just sit you this entire season, again, and hope that you get better. But I guess that didn't work. But I think out of everybody that was least surprised, it was the Colts organization itself of Ballard, Irsay, and coach, and Frank Reich, I should say, because after that, the three of them talking, they looked like they actually knew it was going to happen. And as Colts fans, we all knew it was going to happen. We just didn't think it was going to happen this early, like he took a beating every now and again, and he did it with a smile on his face, and he always did it with defense. He'd smack the helmet of the defensive player. And I'm glad that he's listening to his body, because I'd rather have a happy, healthy Andrew Luck that only played 7 seasons than a sad, injured old man Andrew Luck who played 15 years. Mm-hmm. Because that's not how you want to remember your quarterback. You want to remember him for how he played. And to all those that really were his haters, it's like, yeah, he couldn't make it that far. And I'm tired of that whole RG3 made it farther than him. But what's RG3's record? What did he mean to Washington?
He hasn't
what did
accomplished
he mean?
Anything.
Yeah. What did he mean to Washington? What did he mean to Baltimore? He doesn't mean anything. Andrew Luck, sure, RG3 surpassed him in seasons, but Andrew Luck surpassed him in starts, has surpassed him in passing yards, has surpassed him in touchdowns. Now, you can think of that as a joke all you want, but to me, it's not. It's like, sure, he's got the years, but does he have the stats to back it up? Well, he still, is a better quarterback because he made it this far. He's just as injury prone. You kidding me? If you get him to run, he's going to tear something in his knee. He's not the same quarterback that he was when he came out of college. Just like Andrew Luck is not the same quarterback today. Now, to move on from that to the Colts projection season, I think that they'll bottom out at 8-8, but I think that they could go 9-7 at best. I just think that with Andrew Luck retiring this early, it's going to play a little bit of an emotional factor, too, to the Colts. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they're going to start out the gate really strong. But once they finally find their footing, I think that they'll do fine. And I believe in Brissett. There's a lot of people saying, why don't you go after Dak? And I told my cousin this because he said, what are your thoughts on this? Should the Colts go after Dak? I said, no. And here's why. Dak has proven that he needs a sufficient running game to balance himself out. Now, I said you could do that with Marlon Mack, but he's not at the same level as Ezekiel Elliott is. So you're taking more of a risk bringing Dak Prescott in to lead this team than you are Jacoby Brissett to lead this team. So that's why I'm sticking with Brissett all the way. And though it's going to be a hard road, I think the Colts can do 9-7. That's what I think. All right, Toby, I've spoken long enough.
Go ahead, Toby.
All right, yeah. Josh, you talked a lot about Andrew Luck and what kind of player he is, And of course, you guys are kind of the experts here on Andrew Luck and the Colts on this podcast. But me as a football fan in general, I mean, that news, it took me by surprise when I read it. Of course, I didn't hear it live. I read it when I woke up in the morning because it was sometime in the middle of the night here over here in Germany when the news broke. But I mean, at first, I really didn't think it was really happening. I had to reread the headline if I haven't misread it because I just didn't think that Andrew Luck would retire. And my first reaction was to text you guys, "What the hell is happening?" And if it is really happening. So yeah, it's a weird situation right now, and like Josh said, it's kind of like a weird timing 2 weeks before the season starts for your starting quarterback and your franchise quarterback who should have played for at least 10 to 15 more seasons. Okay, 15 might be a bit much, but what we see out of other players like Brady or Breeze, it was quite possible at the age of 29, which Andrew Luck now is. But I mean, with all that, what was coming out over the last couple of weeks with the high ankle sprain and all the calf stuff, of course, when you've gone through as much as Andrew Luck went through, like Josh said, the lacerated kidney, broken ribs, his shoulder injury, all that, it takes a toll on you. And like he said in his press conference, which like Josh said, it was an impromptu press conference after the game. It had a little bit of a weird feeling about it, not because of the retirement of Andrew Luck, but kind of what he was wearing, the style of the press conference. It was just not as well done as Andrew Luck would have deserved for his retirement. And Derek's gonna get into that after me. But yeah, if you haven't watched the press conference, which probably anybody who's listening to this podcast has watched the press conference, but if you haven't, go on YouTube, check it out. But every news station has posted it on YouTube, the full length version. It's just so emotional when you look at Andrew Luck up on the podium talking about his career and his choices he made to retire. He was always kind of near crying or actually crying on stage at some points. But yeah, I mean, for me, Andrew Luck, he's a special player. He was always one of the most down-to-earth guys on the football field. He was a guy you could relate to, and he was one of the best out there on the field. Doesn't matter what might others say. He put up the stats. He played a really good football and kept the Colts afloat when they didn't have the greatest teams of all. Like Josh said before, they didn't have an offensive line. Andrew Luck was kind of on his own back there in the pocket, and that what might have killed his career at the end. But for me, yeah, Andrew Luck, my first NFL game I ever went to was the Saints against the Colts in 2015. So I saw Andrew Luck play on the field, and after the game, it came out that he actually played in the game with 2 broken ribs. So it was really impressive to see what he could do on the field, even with such an injury. Not a lot of quarterbacks could do that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird to see the Colts without Andrew Luck. Of course, it was kind of hard to imagine the Colts without Peyton Manning when Manning went to the Broncos, but then they got Andrew Luck, and of course, now Andrew Luck was kind of the next up for Peyton Manning and kind of the face of the franchise. So, yeah, now for my Colts prediction for this season, I of course was high on the Colts this year. I think I had the highest record prediction for this year for the Colts. Of course, that is going to change with now Jacoby Brissett being out on the field. But I talked a bit to Derek before the podcast and already said that they are lucky that Andrew Luck didn't have a season or a career-ending injury 3 years ago, because their starting quarterback would have been Scott Tolzien at the time. No, at least they got Jacoby
How dare you
Brissett.
say that name in my presence? I
Yeah,
always
it's
tell
like
people, why
Chase
never
did the
say
other
that.
time.
Yeah,
Like
why
Chase
did you
did.
say that name?
But yeah, I mean, Jacoby Brissett is better than a couple of starters in the league, so the Colts still have a chance, like Josh said, to at least get around the 500 record at the end of the season. I actually see them; they might go at 10-6 this year, because they have the supporting cast now on the team with a better offensive line. They have a good defense, and one of the most important parts for a not so accurate quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, they have a couple of guys on their roster like a Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines, that can kind of run the shoulder routes, kind of have the dump off passes. And Brissett, remember, he was a quarterback under Bill Belichick up there with the New England Patriots, and that's kind of the style that the Patriots play up there. So he has experience to play that kind of football, and I think that's what the Colts should do this year, and kind of take kind of a page out of the Patriots playbook a little bit with Brissett. And I think they could do pretty good even without Andrew Luck, even if it sucks for Colts fans out there that he's not there. And one last thing, speaking about Colts fans, of course, the news broke while the preseason game was still on its way, or I think it was before it even started.
Ending. It was ending
or
when
ending.
that happened, I think.
Yeah. But Andrew Luck, of course, was standing on the sidelines, and people started booing Andrew Luck in the stadium all of a sudden. And I mean, if you're booing Andrew Luck because he's retiring, because he thinks he is physically and mentally not ready to play football anymore, and you call yourself a Colts fan, I don't know what's happening in your head right now. But this guy is going through the toughest time of his life right now. There is no need to boo him about this decision. Of course, you can't be sad about it, but booing a guy who is so emotional that he almost cries at his retirement speech because he loves the game of football that much, that he's so broken down that he can't play the game anymore, that has no place in football anymore.
Yeah, so I'll try my best to stay calm with this one. I've done this. I've kind of had this little podcast moment here talking about Luck. I've had this go on so many times over the last 48 hours of hearing this news. I'm kind of getting a little bit dull to it, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, like Josh said early on, the game is 10% physical, 90% mental, and when you lose your heart and soul for a game and you can't put your heart into something you used to love, you can't perform, or you can perform but you don't enjoy it. And that's ultimately why he's doing this, because he doesn't feel like he would love doing it anymore. It's just too much. And in regards to hearing if he'll ever come back, RG3 talked with him last night, and he went on First Take this morning saying that he believes almost wholeheartedly that Andrew Luck is now done with football. He thinks that there's no chance that he comes back. Of course, he doesn't know his mind, but that's just what he thinks. Yeah, when I first heard the news, Josh was actually the second person to tell me. I was getting out of the shower, and the first person that told me was one of our followers, Seth. He messaged me and said that, showed me a picture of somebody reporting this. And I was like, oh, that might be fake. A lot of people do that crap, But, and then immediately when I read that message, Josh immediately brought up that image and showed me that. I was like, this can't be true. I'm going on Twitter, every single post, Luck retiring. In regards to, and obviously most people probably know my reaction from that point. If you watched any of the podcasts that I've been on, or I've seen my Twitter, you know exactly how I feel about it. In regards to how the information came out, Adam Schefter reported that Andrew Luck wanted to tell his teammates Sunday after the game was over and tell his teammates and tell Colts Nation Sunday. And he says, well, obviously his time got moved up. I was like, gee, I wonder whose fault that is. Maybe the guy who reported it first. Maybe if he didn't report it, then Andrew Luck would have been able to go out his way. Adam Schefter wants to sit there and say, oh, Andrew Luck didn't get to go out the way he wanted to. Yeah, it's because of you. You're the reason why. Because you're the media guy. You know how it is. We all know how it is. It doesn't matter if the media is right or if it's wrong, as long as it's first. That's all that matters. He wanted to be the first one to break the news, and that's what he got. He got his wish. So screw you, Adam Schefter. I'm pissed at you right now. But anyway, and what Toby said about the fans. Again, I don't. The few thousand people were at who were at that game last night or at Saturday night, and they were the ones booing. That is not the majority of our fan base. 95% of our fan base does not tolerate that, will never think like that. And I certainly know every person I talked to that night, I talked to a lot of Colts fans that night, a lot of my friends. Nobody was thinking that was okay. And it's not okay. So what this guy did for us for 7 years and the crap that we put him through, not us as fans, but as the organization itself, like Josh said, how Grigson didn't do his job and it hurt Andrew Luck in the long run. He's at fault here. Grigson is at fault here. And if you want to blame Irsay for part of it, you can do that. But Andrew Luck is the only thing that Andrew Luck is at fault for in this. There is a few times where he decided he wanted to try to come back before he was fully ready. The first time in 2018 when he was trying to come back from his shoulder surgery, he tried to push the recovery a little bit too fast and it regressed, which made it a wonder if he would ever actually play again. And then obviously in training camp this offseason, he tried to push the calf a little bit too early, and now he was obviously sidelined for more weeks because ultimately he was a competitor. He wanted to be back. He didn't want to stand on the sidelines. Ultimately, it just became too much. And we could continue to keep going in circles, and I could keep bringing in more details and everything about the whole scenario, but I've done it so many times already. I'm just a little bit weirded out by it. But now I'm being told today, like the Colts front office has received dozens and dozens of phone calls today from season ticket holders wanting a refund on their season tickets. So that's a thing. Apparently, there's a lot less Colts fans out there, true Colts fans, than what we originally thought. Because if you are that low that you would literally literally want a refund for your season tickets because Andrew Luck's not playing, then you're not a Colts fan. I'm not apologizing for saying it either. You're not a Colts fan if you're going to take away that. And I'll tell you this. If somebody wants to give Josh, myself, Toby some tickets, please do. Please do. Give it to a Colts fan or to a football fan that actually appreciates football. Because a bunch of you spoiled-ass adults who think it's okay to just spend thousands of dollars on season tickets and then say, oh, we're most likely not going to the Super Bowl this year. No point in having a ticket. That's ridiculous. It's stupid. But again, my last words here before we finish this topic up. Luck, I just want to say thank you for everything you did for football and for this Colts team. You've created the nice guy narrative when it comes to NFL's sake. You've given all three of us a lot of fun laughs and a lot of cool stories to tell when it comes to sports. And this guy was just the classiest of players that has ever come into the NFL. There's not many other guys out there that I could think of that are a better human being, along with being an amazing football player, than that was of Andrew Luck. And it's pretty much all I got at this point. At this point, it's crazy to just I don't even know if I can even still think this is real life. It's still hard after almost 48 hours of this. I'm still having difficulty accepting the fact that it's over. But in my last thing here with the Colts, what to expect as these last 24 hours have come along, I've been a lot more conscious of what this Colts team can do. I think that, like Toby and I were mentioning it earlier, this Colts team is a way better team than what Jacoby Brissett inherited in 2018 or 2017. The whole overall team is so much better. Not to mention he has a better coach, he has a better GM, he has a better supporting cast in every asset. So if you want to say Jacoby Brissett came in less than a week before the regular season, or he actually came in week 1 of the regular season and started week 2 of the 2017 season. If the Colts could go 4-11 with Jacoby Brissett starting games, you could. I think that warrants that if this team is easily 3 times better than what it was when he first played, this team can win at least 8 games. This team can win at least 8 games. They can contend for a playoff spot. This team is still able to do that because the Titans are still struggling to figure out their offense. Jacksonville, we don't know with them yet because they have a completely new roster, it feels like, and they have a new quarterback as well. And the Texans, despite being good, they still lost their left tackle and they lost Lamar Miller. They've lost a lot of offense, and this is a team that's vulnerable. It is perfectly doable for the Colts to win the division this year, and a lot of these guys are going to play for number 12. That's motivation for them. As much as it hurts them, it's motivation that, and T.Y. Hilton even said it, that I'm dedicating this season to number 12. I'm about to go out and have the best season that anyone's ever seen me have, and that is great to hear from T.Y. Hilton because we need that more than ever. Again, I think this team can contend for at least a playoff spot for sure. Whether or not they will, it's up to them, but I still think they can do it. All right, so we're going to talk quickly about 2 guys that we have, I think, talked about for 3 weeks straight now. But apparently they just continue to produce headlines weeks before this NFL season officially kicks off. First guy we're going to talk about here real quick is Antonio Brown, who had filed a second grievance with the NFL to try and let him use his old helmet. Well, no surprise here, he lost his second grievance. And from what's being told is that there are companies that are making helmets for Antonio as close as they can get to what he likes and are actually willing to pay him money to actually wear the damn helmet, and still haven't heard anything about that yet. So, Toby, how long is this going to last?
Oh, with Antonio Brown, it's going to last a long time. He's just a stubborn little kid by this point. For me, I'm actually sick of talking about Antonio Brown. By this point, I mean, just try another helmet. I said it the last couple of weeks. Like you said, we've talked about this so many times by now. Just put on a new helmet, get used to it, and get out on the field. But, I mean, there's nothing new to say for me. It's just get back out on the field. Don't be a diva. Or if you don't care about football anymore, just retire. Just do us a favor. Go on your Dancing with the Stars, your Masked Singer, or whatever, and do your thing there. But leave the football field to the big boys and do your little kid stuff, your stubbornness somewhere else on TV. And or kind of man up, get your new helmet on, get back on the field, and make the Raiders actually a good team this season, and prove me wrong that the Raiders do not end with a 0-16 season in Oakland this year.
What do you got, Josh?
One thing's for sure. Antonio Brown's going to be stubborn till the heat death of the universe, no matter what happens. This is just ridiculous. Either, the Raiders just cut him, nobody takes him and he retires there, or he actually does get his stuff together and he goes and actually plays. Like you said, Toby, there's a viable chance he could actually turn the Raiders into a winning team. And if he's just going to behave like this, the Raiders I'd just say cut him. There's nothing more he can do. He's being like this, just cut him. He was in it for the money. Don't give him all the money. Give him like that sum and then just take the rest. And I think he's doing this because he knows that he's not what he used to be. He could say from the frostbite injury and whatnot, that's true. But I think he feels like he's not the same person anymore. So he's trying to probably avoid it by doing all this stuff. That's just what I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, I hope this is over soon. I really hope so. I'm sick and tired. Like Toby said, I'm sick and tired of talking about this dude. I can't stand him. I can't believe that we're still continuing to make a story out of this, because there's one person out of 2,000 people in the NFL that have complained about this stupid helmet, and he's the only one. It's like, dude, if you can't win, just leave. Please do the NFL and do us a favor. Nobody is going to care whether or not you leave. People might hate that you ruin their fantasy league. I don't care. I really do not care if people hate you because of fantasy. You have your $30 million. Go out there and freaking play, or just leave. It's just that. Please, just leave me alone. All right, we're going to move on to our last thing here. Zeke putting out a statement saying that he wants to stay in Dallas for as long as possible, if that's an option. We were told last week that the Dallas Cowboys offered him the second highest contract for a running back in the NFL. It was higher than Le'Veon Bell's contract, but smaller than Todd Gurley's. So, Toby, we'll start with you again on this. Should Zeke take this deal? And do you think that Zeke, with these recent comments, you think Zeke's gonna consider taking that deal?
If I'm Zeke and I'm in the position that he's right now, I actually wouldn't take the deal that he has on the table right now, because he wants to be the highest paid running back right now in the NFL. So taking a deal that is less than Todd Gurley makes right now, with the situation that Todd Gurley is in right now and how the cap space is evolving, I think Ezekiel Elliott should, and he is pushing for that number one spot at running back salary. So for me, I mean, it's a good sign that he says, okay, I want to stay in Dallas, and I think it's the perfect spot for him. Really, he is. He really fits in with the Cowboys, kind of that. Yeah, I don't want to say bad boy mentality, but with all the suspensions and stories that we had about Zeke, it's kind of like the whole Cowboys feel about it over the past and right now as well. So I think Zeke's in the right spot, and he has the right supporting cast. He's the star of the team right now. He doesn't have that star quarterback, but I mean, Dak Prescott is a decent quarterback, but he's not overshadowing him there. He doesn't have that top wide receiver yet. So he's the top guy on the team, so pay him like the top guy that he is. If you want him to stay, he basically is your team. It's the same situation here as well. like with Antonio Brown. We've talked this for so long. So either if you don't get a deal done with Dallas, maybe go out and look with another team, kind of get the leverage on the Cowboys to get your bigger team, not just sitting out, kind of feel out the market. There are a couple of teams or a bunch of teams out there that would be happy to sign a guy like Ezekiel Elliott right now. So might not try that and see if the Cowboys are actually they want you back that much that they give you that big deal. So maybe that's another thing that he wants to try, not just sitting out down in Mexico or wherever he was. So yeah, for me, if I'm Zeke, right now I'd be sitting quiet and wait for the most money in a running back ever got in the NFL.
Josh?
Yeah, I agree with Toby. By far, he is probably the best running back in the league. You can make an argument for Saquon, but I'll leave that for another day. I'd just say, if Dak's not going to take your deal and, you still got money, I'd take Zeke over Dak, There's a lot of people that just say, well, Dak's like the franchise quarterback. He is when he has the franchise running back on the field right behind him or beside him. So you take away Zeke, you just get a mediocre quarterback who can just throw it here and there. And the numbers do not lie. He needs Zeke to succeed and have better statistics. So to say that, Zeke who, Jerry, that was really uncalled for. And if you're going to say that, at least have your quarterback have better stats with him off the field than on the field. Otherwise, you're just looking like a fool, And people are paying very little. I know that Andrew Luck's retirement came out of nowhere, but people also have to take a deeper look at the Cowboys and say they got 3 All-Stars they need to re-sign. Out of the 3, they can only pay 2. Which one is leaving? So they got that kind of road ahead. So I'd say if Zeke has 2 years left, I'd say just ride the rest of this contract out. I mean, you can sit out all you want, but you're just hurting yourself in the end. So, yeah, just ride this contract out and sign with a new team if you're going to do this. So hopefully the Cowboys re-sign Zeke and they get this all taken care of. But Derek, what do you think?
I hope the Cowboys re-sign him so our freaking fan base decides to stop saying Zeke to the Colts, Zeke to the Colts. Like, stop with the nonsense, please. I hope Dallas re-signs this guy, and I hope they make him the highest paid guy because he's been the best running back in the NFL since he's gotten in the NFL. I'm sorry, that's just the truth, okay? And he's still around. He's still durable. We don't know how good Todd Gurley's going to be this year because, again, that lingering injury that was not as bad as what people say it was, and apparently it's bad now. I just think that Dallas needs to pay this guy, and he sounds like he wants to stay in Dallas. So I think Dallas needs to do the right thing here. All right, and that's everything for the podcast here. We hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at T3DS_NFL. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify. I know it was a long episode, and we talked a lot about luck, but that's pretty much everyone's been talking about the last few days. But as always, guys, peace.
See ya.
Later.